Hello and welcome to episode 195 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill, and let's start off talking about college football, Jay.
Okay.
And I want to give a shout out to Coastal Carolina who came back against Troy to keep their unbeaten streak going. And I think they play Louisiana next week for their conference championship. And I think they've done a heck of a job with a freshman quarterback. They're fun to watch, which is really what I like, I think, the best about them. They're fun, they're energetic. I like the coach. I like the players. I like the fact that the offensive line has guys like 5'9" on it. You know, they have these monsters, but they just are excited to play football. They do a good job. So they could be my feel-good story of the year.
Yeah, and like I said, they're well coached. I did see something, and they were talking more about the UCFs and the Cincinnatis of the world, but basically that it's almost impossible for them to break through. And then even if they get a decent bowl game, whenever they win, everybody in the media and the other big conferences is like, well, the other team was just so disappointed to be there that they need to work on that narrative because it's.
That's a bad narrative. I agree. And I mean, it's a built-in excuse.
Yeah, it's like, well, we thought we were going to be in the
anyhow, so we know we play hard. We're so disappointed we couldn't recover. We thought we should be in a championship game. Blah blah blah.
And that's going back to like Boise State beating Oklahoma when UCF completed their undefeated season. Whatever happens with Cincinnati this year, like if you go undefeated and you beat whoever you got to beat, the other team shouldn't get to make the lame excuse, and the media and the big the Power Five shouldn't put up that. Well, they just they played a disappointed team. I just don't like that narrative.
No, and I didn't like the fact that Iowa State jumped Cincinnati.
No.
And Iowa State I like Iowa State. I'm going to root for Iowa State. But Cincinnati's undefeated. There's no way you should jump that first spot. But let's just take a look at what we have. Now that Florida lost in Shoegate. And like we talked offline, I've not liked this Coach Mullen the whole year after he said we should have 80,000 people at our game after he lost to a game at A&M. And he blamed it on not having fans. I just had not been able to stomach him. And then yesterday he comes up with, well, maybe we should have played fewer games. He didn't say Ohio State, but that's what he meant.
That's what he meant, yeah.
To be in the playoff and everything. And hey, you lost the game, own it. And you lost the game because your players were undisciplined. And they're like you. They say whatever they want to do. They do whatever they want to do. So the shoe fits wear it, literally.
And Trask has had an amazing season, but he had an off game for himself.
He did an off game. And LSU had like less than 50 scholarship players. And they were playing with a bunch of freshmen and guys that hadn't played. And I like Coach Ed. I like Coach O. And I like the fact that he got him. I mean, they were up to play. And once Florida did take him out of the game. And that's on Florida. You got a game like that, we talk about it all the time. You put your foot on their neck and you crush them. And they just never had that opportunity. And these guys stayed in the game, stayed in the game, stayed in the game. And in the second half, they believed they could win.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what we think like next week, next Sunday, they pick the teams for the college football playoff.
Right.
All right. Alabama's in whether they win or lose.
Yes.
All right. Clemson, Notre Dame, and Ohio State's in where they win. Well, Ohio State's not in if they lose to Northwestern.
Right. Yeah, because I don't think you could justify their short schedule and a loss to Northwestern. If they go undefeated with where they were predicted to be, then that narrative plays out and you win.
Okay, where are you on Clemson, Notre Dame? Notre Dame wins, they're in, obviously.
Yeah.
Clemson wins a close game.
I think Notre Dame and Clemson are the other two. I think if Clemson blows Notre Dame out, I think that's a whole different. Then the can of worms opens up.
Yeah.
And I don't know what a blowout.
You really don't want a third Clemson Notre Dame game, do you? Or do you? Because you can have it.
It could happen, but like I said, I think they've got to. If Notre Dame's within, if they're competitive in the game, or there's any kind of controversy, I think it's Notre Dame. I mean, they still have a lot of national appeal. I mean, it's the team. It's the team people want to see, whether you're rooting against them or rooting for them. I mean. And then, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields in Alabama. I mean, that is college football. If you're looking at a picture, you put a Sports Illustrated cover, it's those people. So,
Well, I'm going to be watching it with great interest to watch. I'm excited to watch that game. I'm excited to watch to see if Iowa State can beat Oklahoma, even though it's a meaningless game, except for that somebody different would be the Big 12 champ. That's interesting. It'll be an interesting week.
Yeah.
So next week we can talk. By the time we do the show, or maybe we'll delay the show until later.
Yeah, we'll come up with the next week's schedule with the holiday fast approaching.
You're going to be driving on Sunday. Maybe we want to do the show on Monday that week.
Yeah, or maybe we'll maybe do a double episode after the holiday. We'll figure it out.
We'll do whatever.
Yeah, we probably should discuss that off there, but whatever. You get to hear the behind the scenes stuff too.
So we got some big games tonight and tomorrow. The big games: Steelers, Buffalo, and the Ravens, Browns.
Well, for our divisions, they are interesting, yes. And I guess nationally, those are the two biggest games as well.
Yeah, they affect a lot of playoff opportunities too. So.
Yeah, the Steelers
could close out and get a playoff. The Browns could pretty much eliminate the Ravens, get the Ravens out of the mix. A lot of stuff could happen.
And I think if Cleveland wins and goes
wins today, which is doubtful, playing Kansas City, but you never know.
Right.
I mean, there's still a lot up in the air. So it's big games today. But are you buying Baker or not? Are you buying or selling Baker?
I'm buying Baker in the same way I buy Jared Goff. I think it's an incredibly talented. They're both two talented teams with great head coaches, and their biggest weakness is the thing that you're most scared about. And I think if the teams, if you're able to run the ball and you have a little bit of a lead, both those teams, and they got the play action working, and that makes Goff and Baker look good. But if somebody gets up on them, and you need to go, if you need to have it so we know you're going to throw the football, both those teams look real shaky. But as we discussed, our Steelers, who lost, sadly, to Washington and lost even more players in the process, were, they weren't the greatest 11-0 team you'd ever seen. The Chiefs at 11-1 have not looked like world beaters. Like, this isn't was it the 2018 Patriots or? No, I guess much earlier. But, when that undefeated Patriot team they looked unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anybody in the NFL this year, as good as the Chiefs are and as amazing as Patrick Mahomes are, they don't look like an unstoppable team.
No, and you got to factor in COVID. You could think you have a great team, then all of a sudden you get 3 or 4 guys out and you're done.
Yeah. It's true.
It's just, it's happened to the Ravens. It hurt the Steelers last week that they had a couple players that couldn't play because of COVID. And then the other injuries they've had all year long. It's hard. It's a game of attrition.
Yeah, it looks like
healthiest teams are going to be there.
It's true. And then in the other exciting game today to watch is Jalen Hurts and the Eagles.
Okay.
Well, I like Jalen Hurts. I thought he was a fun quarterback at Alabama. When he got benched for Tua, I thought he did everything you would want a guy to do at that young age. Went to Oklahoma.
Yeah, he was very, very impressive.
Went to Oklahoma, played fantastic. Heisman candidate. So he's played for 2 of the best coaches in college football. They trusted him to be their starter. They loved having him in there. And then the Eagles, took him in the second round, which, you hear all this rumbling that may be part of the problem with Carson Wentz is people hate him.
Yeah.
I've seen all these articles come out with, and granted, it's an unnamed team source, so take that for what it's worth, but that he's sort of a know-it-all and kind of a dick, and that people don't really rally around him. And, the way they rally around Foles when he won the Super Bowl, and the way they rallied around, and when you watched that game last week, if you saw any of it, when Hurts came in and they yanked Carson Wentz, there was a different energy to that team.
Yeah, I admit that.
And
you know what? I've got a real bias for Carson Wentz because he got that jersey. He took the time to sign a game-used jersey and send it to you for Brewster's girlfriend.
Yeah, that was,
it has nothing to do with football.
No.
But, it tells me who he is as a person.
It does.
And so, I like that part of him. But, you're the Eagles. You're still kind of in it, but you're not in it with Carson the way Carson's playing right now. So, if you really want to take a shot here, you got some games left, and it's still anybody's division to win.
Well, I think from what I've seen cap-wise, moving on from Carson Wentz this year and next year is almost impossible. Like, he has so much guaranteed money, and they paid him so much that, to move away from him would be insane. And you did spend a second-round pick on Jalen Hurts. And I think right now you've got to be looking at yourself and saying, like, we and a team that needed receiver help and defensive help and probably help all over the offensive and defensive lines, we took a quarterback with a second-round pick and a high second-round pick. So we have to see. I mean, with Carson playing the way he's playing, some time off might do him good no matter what. But also see, like, do we have anything in Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
Like, what is, like, it is, if we get, if one of these, if Mac Wilson is there, one of these other guys, and we are thinking long-term after Hurts, like, do we pull the trigger on one of these guys, or is Hurts maybe the guy we can move to? Maybe this sparks it, I don't know, but Carson Wentz is playing some of the worst.
A lot of stuff going on. You got a coach in trouble.
Yeah.
Presumably, despite winning the Super Bowl a couple years ago.
But now when you look at him and you look at Frank Reich, who was his assistant coach, Frank Reich looking like a pretty good coach, and maybe he's made, you never know who the man behind, who the genius is in the room.
That's true.
And maybe, Peterson wasn't really the mind that, Frank Reich was. And Frank Reich, obviously when they won that Super Bowl, he got a head coaching job, and maybe, there was a lot more Frank Reich than there was Doug Peterson, because he doesn't look like a great coach right now based on anything we've seen either.
Well, it's kind of interesting that you got both Tua and Jalen Hurts starting today.
It is. And Tua has been, sort of all over the map.
Yeah.
But again, he missed a lot of football.
Some interesting games.
Yeah.
It's just that time of year when everything's coming down, it's just kind of crazy.
And I think we can almost pour one out for the Patriots, Brady's gone. They have a 6% chance of making the playoffs. And that 6% hinges on a lot of people falling ahead of them.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure they're done.
But they've had, I think, was it 17 consecutive seasons in the playoffs?
Yeah.
And that's, tip of the hat, the bow, whatever you want to say. Like, for them to do that is just in football, in modern football, with the salary cap, is just incredible. And they deserve a lot of credit for that,
Yeah. And, and it's interesting, Brady's been struggling a little bit too, so maybe it was the combination. And as much as they wanted to show that they could do without the other one, maybe they couldn't.
No. And I think we talked about it earlier in the season, like what Belichick said, we pushed a lot in, and at some point we were going to have to pay the bill. And maybe this is the time to sort of pay the bill. And then, Brady, Brady at times looks, and I've seen, depending on whoever you're listening to, whichever talking head, some people are saying it's the coach's fault. Some people are saying it's the receiver's fault. Some people are saying Brady just doesn't have it anymore. But whatever it is, Brady's looked very human these last two seasons, especially this season. So, and it certainly isn't due to a lack of weapons.
They're playing the Vikings today, and it's a big game because they're both fighting for that playoff spot.
Yeah.
And so we'll see how that goes.
It's true.
It's going to be real interesting. Let's talk about NBA.
Okay. Well, first off, let's just talk. What did you think of Harden's little baby birthday party bash, flying across, going to Vegas, taking all the pictures with no masks on in a COVID era? Like, what do you think? In this player minute, did he take it too far as far as?
If I gave you one word to describe James Harden, what would the word be?
Petulant.
Petulant. My word would be selfish.
Yeah. I don't think
so. He's all about him, which is his problem on the court, which is his problem with teammates.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be surprised that it's going to be all about him on his birthday or whatever it was.
It was little baby's birthday, not his birthday.
Oh.
But again, you can't. As great as James Harden is, his defense has improved, but he's not a great defender. When he's not involved in the plays, we saw with both Russ and with, Chris Paul, he does kind of just stand around. Now he's, whether you claim he's being a decoy, like if it looks like you don't care, we've seen the NFL too with receivers when it's a run play. You either sell it or you just kind of stand around. And then, he doesn't seem to get it. His teammates don't seem to like him. And he seems to blame it on everybody else. So as great as he is, And then you look at some of these trade rumors. Like if I'm the 76ers and I'm not in that locker room, I'm not on that, so I don't know what Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid's relationship is, but you were a Kawhi 5 bounces away from being in the NBA championship the year that Toronto won it, just 2 years ago. You made what I think are some pretty good moves to put some better pieces around you. You brought in a new coach. Like, I don't know if I want to give up Ben Simmons right now, a young player, for a 32-year-old James Harden who, what if he decides he doesn't like playing with Embiid 5 minutes into the whole thing? Or Embiid doesn't like Harden,
Yeah.
If I'm the Sixers, I'm not doing anything right now.
It's one of those trades where if it works, you're a genius. And if it doesn't work, you've pretty much blown your chance of capitalizing on your window.
Yeah.
Because you've probably done enough damage that you don't have anything.
And my only semi-James Harden defense in all of this is that when Fertitta came in as the owner, he doesn't seem like a great owner. And, obviously the coach is gone, Daryl Morey's gone, and Fertitta's not the kind, he just did. I think you have different kind of owners, and he doesn't seem like the kind of owner I would necessarily want to play for either. Forget the Trump stuff and the political stuff, just as far as his spending as an owner, his, businessman, I know what I'm doing sort of ownerness when you don't know anything about the NBA. I think it's kind of, I don't think a lot of players probably respect that either. So that would be my only defense on his whining. But some of the other trade rumors, like you've heard the Miami Heat one. They said they're open to business and that Tyler Hero is not untouchable. What would you give up for the Heat for James Harden to pair with Jimmy Butler?
I wouldn't make the trade.
No?
I think they were as good as they were because everybody was involved in that team. And I think that's the Heat. Everybody has to be involved. And I think if you bring James Harden in, you crush the chemistry of that team. And you're not what you were last year. And I don't see that. I don't like that trade at all. I'm not saying it's not going to get made, but I don't like it.
No, and I'm not saying that Tyler Hero is going to ever be, one half of James Harden, but for a rookie, he looked fantastic. And he and Duncan Robinson and some of those other young guys, like, they got playoff experience, they got finals experience. Now you're bringing that team back with, this great chemistry. Like, I don't want to mess that up either.
No, I really don't. That team, and what was great about that team is Jimmy Butler could do whatever he needed to do. If he needed to be a support player, he could do that. If he needed to take over the game, he could do that. And once you put Harden on that team, that takes that element away. So you're not going to I think you're going to make Jimmy Butler less effective than he was if you bring James Harden in.
And that's a team that lost in the finals with a hurt Bam Adebayo who was just crushing people all year long. He came back probably too early to play. And then you lost Gordon Dragic, who was incredibly important to your team.
Yeah.
So you were down like 1.5 starters, and you still played pretty decent against the Anthony Davis Lakers. So,
And Miami played a pretty up-tempo offense.
He did.
And James Harden, if he's going to be dribbling the ball like that, you don't have that.
No. I've heard some Boston rumors that Boston's in every rumor, though. Danny Ainge, I think, just throws his hat in every single ring.
Well, because he's got a lot of resources.
He does. I still think the most intriguing one is Golden State, like we talked about. Because you can offer...
We talked about that a little bit, because you think that if he was in that system, and you think Kerr, and I like Kerr as a coach, and you've got Draymond there to keep him in line, and you got Steph, that's a lot of ego, Jace, to put on the shelf.
It is a lot of ego, but I think if you're the Warriors, your window is closing fast, at least built around these guys. And, next year you do get Clay back, but you're bringing back Clay off consecutive, knee injuries in back-to-back years where he missed most of the year. Steph is 32. And, smaller guards are not the Chris Paul where they have a history of lasting that long, at least at their prime. Draymond is also in that stage where you maybe got one or two more, 80, 90% of Draymond years left before I think he starts to slide quite a bit. And like I said, if I'm Houston, I'm getting James Wiseman, the number 2 overall pick in the draft. I'm getting Minnesota's unprotected first-round pick from next year, which, the West is pretty stacked.
It's probably going to be a lottery pick.
It's probably going to be a lottery pick. maybe I get another Golden State down the line pick, maybe from the double draft, and then maybe 2 pick swaps down the line with Golden State, and then I take back the Wiggins contract, and maybe this is an all-in move where it's like, if we don't get something this year, maybe we don't have what it's, But, again, Golden State can be thinking long-term, too. They've got Steph, they've got Dre, they've got the promise of Clay, so maybe they don't need to worry about it. And then the latest rumors I've heard is if you want to take James Harden off our hands, you also have to take either the John Wall contract or Eric Gordon. So if we can't get all the stuff we want, you have to take all the stuff we don't want. And that's how we'll make that trade work.
I can't imagine somebody taking on Harden's contract or Wall's contract. I mean, you've been playing with 8 free agents.
And Eric Gordon has,
8 guys from the G League.
And Eric Gordon, I think, has, 3 years at almost $20-something million, too. So Eric Gordon is exactly, But, I think they're just exploring their options, so.
Let's see. Well, I do admit I'm looking forward to the NBA season. It's going to be an interesting season.
Now, as you've studied fandom over the years, does the young fan, the 18 to 25-year-old fan, I know this creates a lot of headlines when people are constantly moving team to team and, you buy their jersey 1 year and the next year they say they want to be traded. And I know that younger people have a different relationship with sports and basketball. And, you're playing 2K and you're trading people constantly in 2K. You get bored with playing with people you're playing with. But if it continues down this road where, it seems like they're all moving towards the big markets, kind of screwing over this, destroying the small market. But, how do you think can this sustain itself? Like, I know you say all press is good press. And I get caught up. Like, I love the Harden rumors.
And that's why I was so surprised when Paul George signed in Oklahoma City and Russ said he wanted to stay, because that to me was going to be, if that actually was going to happen, that was going to be a game changer. But it didn't happen. It happened for a year.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it was gone. So the new test case is Giannis. If Giannis stays in Milwaukee, you can make a case that it can't happen. But I don't think it's going to happen on a regular basis. If I'm a star and I'm in Indianapolis and I, play out my rookie contract and I can go to LA or New York or Miami or Phoenix or a market like that, I'm probably going to want to do that. Or if I'm the only star on my team, I know we're not going to win just with me, so I've got to be looking somewhere else. And so, it's hard. And the one thing about the NBA is that players do have that leverage.
Yeah.
That they really don't in football, and they do to a degree in baseball because there's no salary cap. So if somebody wants to spend, you can stockpile talent in baseball. It's just a question of how well they mesh together. So, but in basketball, it just seems like they're going to, force moves and make moves and go where they want to go play.
Well, I would say
LeBron do it 3 times.
Yeah. I can only discuss things, obviously, from my perspective, because that's pretty much the only thing I have a guaranteed, view on.
Yeah.
And I don't miss Steeler games. If it comes down to having to listen to it on the Steeler app, I don't miss the games because I have this investment in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
And, with the NBA, I check Bleacher Report every day. If there's a story that's happening in the NBA, I pay attention to the story. If there's trade rumors, whether I'm a gossipy housewife from those shows or a sports fan, like I get excited about, the buzz. But I don't have that loyalty to a team where it's like, oh, the Hornets are playing tonight. I got to watch the Hornets game. The Lakers are playing, and it's, again, if there's a big game and I'm home, but like due to my, growing up, obviously, with, going from Nana to you to me, like the Steelers mean something to me. And, if that doesn't exist, I don't know how, I'm a fan of the NBA, but it's not the same level.
No, because I think in the NBA, you're more of a fan of the players than you are the teams.
Right.
Unless you live in that market. That's what I would say. I love Oklahoma City. if I lived there, I would go to games. And the fact that Russ is gone, all those guys are gone, I still like Oklahoma because we live there.
Yeah.
And so I've got that same kind of affiliation. And the fact I never thought there would be a pro team in Oklahoma. That's why I like Oklahoma. That's why I like Oklahoma City. You know, but who do I want to watch now? I want to watch John Morant. I mean, he's incredible.
Yeah.
I want to watch him. I want to watch New Orleans. There's enough people in New Orleans is an interesting team for me. I like to watch New Orleans. I like to watch Dallas. But, you know, am I going to change my schedule around to watch the game? No. But I'm interested. It's just not like with the Steelers, I will change my schedule around and I'll make sure that I'm going to watch the game. But the NBA, I like the game. I like the players. Will I watch a bunch on Christmas Day? Absolutely. But it's more player-centric than team-centric unless it's a team that I have some rooting interest for. But it's like I only have, in the NFL, I have the Steelers. I don't root for anybody else. But in the NBA, I've got, you know, 3 teams that are clients, and I got players that I like. There's probably like 8 or 9 teams that I root for in the NBA.
Right.
Just not with the passion. And I don't get to the passion until the finals, and it's either a team I like or a team I don't like. And so I can either root for or root against.
Well, I just think when you think about some of the most fervent fan bases in the NBA, right? Your Bostons, your LAs, teams like that. When the NBA really took hold and gained all those long-term fans. Like I said, I inherited my Steelers, you know, love from you guys. It was like it came with being...
Plus, they were good, and they were successful, and they won
right.
Super Bowls.
And you look at Boston...
Boston and LA are the same thing.
Right, but they had those years where, like, if I'm a Celtics fan, I have Larry Bird, I have Parrish, I have McHale. I have those guys for their entire careers, 10 years. And that's like... And it became like, you know, part of the identity, part of those sorts of things. But if Bird played, you know, and after 3 years he was like, no, I don't want to be in Boston. He was in LA. Like, you wonder, like, you know, do you lose some of the, like, you know, those fans that you earned through being such a big part of the city? Do those people just, the fringe people, do you lose, you know, 10% of your audience, 20% of your audience because, you know, no, it's no longer like, you know, I'm from Boston, we're the Celtics. You know, now it's sort of like, whatever. Sort of you're more you know, like you lose sort of that built-in long-term, that sort of the fringe people that, you know, they come from having a familiarity with those people. And I don't know.
It's going to be fun to watch. Yeah. Like I said, you know, the more I see John Morant, the more enamored I am with John Morant.
Well, he has that stupid knock that a lot of people get, which is historically based on his size and his style of play. He's probably more of a 5 to 8 year star as opposed to a decade-long star. And again, that's just, you know, statistically speaking, you know, Derrick Rose broke down, you know, and sort of, you could argue John Wall broke down, and people with that similar uber athletic, incredibly fast up and down the court game. But, you know, we've also come a long way as far as rest and, you know, and you just never know how somebody's going to fall or not fall or take a hit and not take a hit, so... But he is incredibly exciting to watch. And that whole team has got they're a very under-the-radar, nice young team that's being put together down there in Memphis. Which, speaking of Memphis, we brought it up a few weeks ago, but NBA expansion. And Seattle being one city. And then if they expand, it would be 2 teams.
With Oakview and the Key Arena in Seattle, or now the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle.
Yeah.
Is adamant about wanting to take. And we know that the Las Vegas now has an NHL team and an NFL team.
Yes.
But they've hosted the NBA All-Star game before. I mean, would you put an NBA team in Las Vegas? Would you put an NBA team in Nashville? You know, I probably wouldn't put one in Pittsburgh. I probably wouldn't put one in Buffalo. I probably wouldn't put one in San Diego.
No,
or San Diego, all you have is the Padres. So you've got a big market, but you've had a basketball team there before and it didn't do well.
No.
So
I think, you know, Vegas being a city that NBA players obviously like to go to, as we learned from earlier when we talked about James Harden going to a strip club in Vegas, as dangerous as that could be as a city. But Miami works, New York are fine, so I'm sure you'd be fine in Vegas. Like, you can see Vegas being a destination city. If it's a well-run organization. Like, I want to go play in Vegas. I'm going to gamble, I'm going to golf, I'm going to go to strip clubs, and not to stereotype the NBA player, and that's their, their day. But I mean, you're also, international airport, still close to LA. Like, that's an exciting city if you're an NBA player.
Yeah. So I think it'd be Seattle in one of those two cities.
And I think when we talk about what we talked about earlier, everyone wants to go to the big market. That's where the stars end up going. You could see Vegas jump in a lot of other cities right away as soon as they became the team.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. It'll be interesting.
I think so. Well, I went to Pizza Delicious, which was the last restaurant I got takeout from before the pandemic yesterday. And I got takeout again. And if you're down in New Orleans, it's not a pizza city, but Pizza Delicious is easily one of the top 2 or 3 pizza places down here. It's a very traditional, thin New York slice, great service, good ingredients. Pizza Delicious, or Pizza D as it's known by the locals, is definitely your spot. So just throw that out there.
Okay. And, you send Mom a cookbook for cake, and so I would tell, and after every look through that cookbook, I would tell anybody, if you're interested in doing some cooking at home during the pandemic, which most of you are, you should look into getting the cake cookbook. There's some amazing recipes in it.
And if you're from New Orleans, I mean, you're supporting somebody local, because it's pretty clear they're making those on a pretty small scale. But it's a very personalized cookbook. It's got stories in it, recipes, and you're supporting a local business that they did close down during all this, but they're putting their recipes out there for everybody, and it was a great breakfast spot. So
yeah, and the Mom, Sharon will be trying some of these recipes, and those will probably be some of my food moments in the upcoming weeks.
Yes, which is very exciting.
Okay.
Entertainment-wise, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head already. But last night, we started watching the Kelly Kuko flight attendant show on HBO.
Yeah.
And it's not great television, I can't tell you that. But it's very fast-paced. It moves really quick. Got a lot of fast cuts. And I want to know what happened. So
okay.
I think that says a lot about a mystery. Like, if it's, we're 2 episodes in, I'm excited to watch more because I need to know, the premise, and this is from the trailer, so this isn't spoilers. You have sort of a hard partying international stewardess, played by Kelly Kuko, who is always the weak link on anything she's on. No offense to you, Kelly. And she wakes up next to a dead body in Thailand of the man she met a guy in first class. They had a wonderful date together, and now she's trying to put together the pieces of that night and figure out what happened. And there's a lot of stuff happening, but it's we talked about The Undoing, and The Undoing obviously isn't the greatest television show either, but it's a fun mystery, and this so far has been a fun mystery.
Yeah.
So if you have HBO Max,
I started watching, I think it's called Your Honor on Showtime.
Yeah.
And it's a story that's been told a million times. That there's an accident, and you leave the scene of the crime, and there's a murder, there's a death, and then it's what comes after that. And so that story's been done.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it's got Bryan Cranston in it, and I watched it last week, and I'm intrigued enough to keep watching it to see where it goes.
Yeah, and that's, especially in pandemic times, after everybody watched probably more TV than they've watched in 2 or 3 years, it's, it's good to find that.
And then when the arc closes on this week's Big Sky, I'm probably done with Big Sky. And the more I watched, the more it became like it should be on during the day between 2 and 3. Should be with General Hospital and everything else. It's a little too sober for me. But I'll watch, since I've watched the first 4 episodes, the story arc closes on Tuesday night, so I'll actually watch that and then be done with it.
Okay.
But I can't, it's not something I'm going to pick up.
No. And like I said, the Kelly Kuko one, it's, you get some international cities. It's an HBO show, so it's got obviously a nice budget to it. And, it's, if you're in for a good mystery that's not, too complicated, well, who knows how complicated it's going to get, but I think it's a nice, easy watch. I'll just say that, like a beach book,
I would recommend the Beach Boys documentary on HBO. The Bee Gees, I'm sorry. The Bee Gees documentary. Very, very, very well done. Very informative. And you come away with a lot of respect for the Bee Gees. Because they lasted the 60s and 70s and the 80s and even into the 90s as songwriters. And I mean, some of the songs, you'll see some of the songs that they wrote after disco died and they got caught up in that. Their reputation was, well, they're disco bands and nobody would play the stuff on the radio. They relaunched a whole other career to writing songs for people like Barbra Streisand, Aretha Franklin, and a number of people. And they did really, really well with it. So they lasted a long time. And it's a really well done documentary.
And they inspired a pretty funny SNL sketch with Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake playing the Bee Gees on their talk show. So.
In fact, Justin Timberlake is in the story a lot.
Oh, okay.
He's one of the people that comments on the Bee Gees.
Oh, nice. Maybe that's where that sketch came from.
It was really, really, really well done.
Okay.
So, and HBO does some really good documentaries. I'm looking forward to the Tiger Woods documentary coming up in January. And I think that might be on ESPN. But I'm looking forward to that one as well.
And I don't know if we spoke on it yesterday, but this is sort of or last week. I think we skipped it, but entertainment news. Half of Hollywood is very upset with HBO and Warner Brothers, and half are accepting of the new reality. But, and I don't think you're closing this Pandora's box, I guess is why I'm bringing it up. Like, obviously during a pandemic, it's great that, if you have HBO Max, you can watch Wonder Woman and Dune and the new Matrix movie and every other first-party thing on HBO Max. And I don't think that's ever going to change. Even once we have all vaccinated, hopefully, and we're getting back to normal, like, I think that's just the new reality. And I think, with theaters, I've always viewed movie theaters recently more like dinosaurs a little bit, where they haven't adapted enough overall, and they've been so slow to change, sort of like Blockbuster. Like, Blockbuster was offered a chance to be, in Redbox and Netflix, and it took them so long to get there that they got passed by. And I've seen with movie theaters, they're slowly improving the food, but they still have the ridiculous prices. Each theater has like one theater that's like their A+ theater with the great sound and the great screen, and the other ones are fine. And I'm not going to take anything away from, watching a comedy in a large room full of people. Like, it does add something to it, but I just don't think they've done enough to move forward to make that experience this unforgettable thing that you have to do that you can't compete with watching it at home. So,
right.
And I think that's something, sports, you've got to do something to make people want to go. And not just from an economic standpoint, but what are you doing to really, go all out? And I just don't think movie theaters have done that enough to really keep people.
Yeah.
And again, it's, maybe they can recover and it's a sad day. And I know Christopher Nolan, of all people, is very upset that people won't be able to see his movie on the screen with the sound. And while I do like Christopher Nolan quite a lot, and people might take this as a shot, if he spent more time on, let's say, character development and plot and less on spectacle, then he might depend less on the theater experience. So, maybe take that note, Christopher Nolan. Shots fired, as they say. And I do, like I said, I do like a lot of his movies, but when you strip away sort of the spectacle of some of the special effects and the practical effects, which he does incredibly well, he's sort of like, a fancy Michael Bay in a weird way.
Well, still a lot of good football to watch today, so I'm looking forward to it. Next week we'll figure out, we won't post the show any later than Tuesday, Jay, or if we're going to do it next week, or we're going to take a week off. We'll decide during the week, and I'll put that on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll come back with it. We'll either do an episode next week and the following week, or the following week we'll just do an extra long episode and really sort of holiday recap, and we'll add some other stuff in and see how things goes. Because I think the next episode, we would post on the 21st. Or 22nd. So who knows? Maybe we'll do it next week anyway.
Yeah, and then if we do it next week, we probably won't do it Christmas weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll figure that out. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll give you an update as to what we're going to do.
Exactly.
All right, buddy. Have a great week.